Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 23rd day of July, 2019. Well, if this is your first time here, welcome. Tomorrow, I'm going to do this a little differently. For those of you who've been here in the past, thank you so much for coming back. As you know, this usually posts around noon Pacific Standard Time, but usually around there. But what I'm going to do tomorrow morning, apparently coverage of the Mueller testimony, it either starts, the testimony itself either starts at 8:30 our time, which is 5:30 Eastern, or rather 5:30 our time and 8:30 Eastern, I should say. I got that mixed up. Or it's just when the coverage starts. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and set the alarm for 5, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to do a quick reading. I don't know if it's going to take the same tone as the ones I usually do, which are random. I'll do 3 or 4 cards and they're all done randomly. I may go ahead and just do a 3-card reading just to get things started. And then we'll meet again on Thursday for the normal reading. I wanted to do that. I didn't want to not do one, but I don't want to not watch this. And I don't know how much time is going to be in between the different committees. I don't know if there would be time and when that would be. So to avoid any late posting or anything like that, or to avoid not posting at all, I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick, 5 or 10 minute, reading, and leave it at that, and then get on. Get my stuff together, and my husband and I are going to plop our fannies down in front of the TV and watch this thing while we irrigate the pasture and the yards and the gardens, be running around, oh my God, what did I miss? So anyway, we're going to do that tomorrow. So that's what's on schedule for tomorrow. That will be one little change from the normal way we do this. So anyhow, I also wanted to tell you that I just finished. I didn't finish it last night because we went outside and we were looking at the stars again. But for the anomalous craft in the sky, we saw some weird stuff last night too, and I don't quite know what it is. But in any event, a couple things disappeared. That's always interesting because I'm looking through the binoculars, just vanished, and it didn't go behind a cloud. So I don't know what happened there. But anyway, we were doing that, and I worked on it when we came back in, and then it was about 12:30, and I said, I can't finish the last one. So anyhow, I finished that this morning, and so go check that out on the blog over at imsteppingaside.com. At Stepping Aside, it's called It's Mueller Time, and so anyway, it's a tarot reading for what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm normally not about predictions, but I'm more about energy and all of that, and so it basically says how all of that's going to flow. But what I did is I used 3 different decks, and I did a 3-card spread from 3 different decks, just to be sure, and so go check that out, and it's a little bit long, but not that long. So anyhow, I posted it there on the blog at imsteppingaside.com. I also cross-post most all of my stuff over on Medium, so you can find it there. Oh, and they recommended the Red Clover post I did. Medium did. So that was kind of cool. I got a notice on that. Once in a while, they'll recommend something I write for, I guess, their recommended stories that they send out to people. So that's really, really nice of them to do that, and I really appreciate that they did that for me. So check that out if you want to learn a little more about red clover. Also, there's a newer one on yellow dock, which is interesting, and both are really great herbs to use, medicinal plants to use to help keep your body flushed and everything moving through and protected from the environmental stuff we encounter, and just keeping everything in balance. Both plants do that. So anyhow, let's get started with our first card today. going to be in the 90s again today, so I guess so. It's water, water everywhere. You know, Central Oregon is really dry. We're like at 3,000 feet, at least where we are now. Bend is more like 5,000 plus feet. And there now you get into the more ponderosa pines and things like that. You move a little further down and you're going to get into lodgepole pine when you go further south. But you're still high up in elevation. And so it's different than it is here. Here we have juniper and sage. You'll see that up there in Bend. You know, it's like 15 minutes away from me. And so you'll see that. But typically you start to see a change in the type of trees and plant life when you get just a few miles up the road here, or down the road, as it were. But here, you know, it's all dry and volcanic. And so if you don't keep the water on things, everything dies. So, and returns to the sage and all of that, and the bitter brush and the rabbit brush and all of that. So anyhow, that's why we have to water today. Here we have the Page of Wands. He's looking toward the future. Pages are about new messages. Sometimes they're about the birth of a child, depending on what other card it's paired with. But basically here, we have some wands is about the fire element and our creativity and our will. And so what you're really looking at here is something new on the horizon with our will, with intention. We're going to manifest something new. You can see the oranges and the yellows, colors for depicting the or corresponding to the fire element. When I first started doing these, I was doing one card and one rune. And then I started drawing court cards. And so Goddess was saying, hey, you know what? You need to do more than one card, honey. Court cards are interesting because they can either depict the individual on the card. So in this case, someone who's young, a student, a seeker, somebody like that. Or it's the qualities therein, you know, so not just youthfulness, but being a student or undeveloped potential. Sort of begins the same sort of energy of the Fool with its own undeveloped potential. So you can see this like, okay, so what? You have a page. What does that mean? If it doesn't have anything to interact with, then there's less of there's just not quite as much information as you can get from that particular individual. So let's do another card. But at least we know he's looking toward the future, and it's something to do with manifesting something new. So that's good. And if you have been here before, you know I take the 13th card each time because I like things to be random, although I won't do that tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm just going to lay out 3 cards and see what we have. Here we have the 12th card, I believe, yeah, of the Major Arcana, so a 3 energy. The Hanged Man. You can see 3s throughout. I'll show you. See if I can do this reverse. So there's 1, 2, 3. 3 is implied down here. You've got 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Oh my God, I did it. Finally. Usually I'm all over the place because I'm having to do it backwards, you know, and reversed into the screen. So that's, I can't see anything. Anyway, we're looking at mind, body, spirit, and balance here. Surrender, allowing the inner voice, the source presence within to inform everything. We are spirit embodied in these bodies, spirit expressed into these bodies, basically. And so we forget that, though, and we simply react from the standpoint of ego. Well, what the Hanged Man is saying, wait a minute, let's let go of the ego. Let's let go of all of the trappings of life and just let spirit inform everything. And apparently the page wants us to do that with intention. So it indicates a change then. You know, it indicates something that's catalytic. A 3 energy is catalytic. But if we have some new intention that we want to manifest, well, we're manifesting spirit. So it means that we've forgotten who we are and that we need to come back into alignment with that truth. so that we can then see things through the eyes of source vision instead of through the eyes of ego. Because ego, of course, is subjective and gets us into all kinds of trouble, as we know. Let's do another card. But the thing, let me say before I show you this card, I don't happen to like this card, but anyway, I'll show it to you anyway. It's the Five of Swords. But before we look at that, let's say one more thing about the Hanged Man. It isn't that aligning in source presence is new, because it's who we are. But it is something we have to do with intention. When we get into the flow of ego, we spend all of our time believing what we see, giving it all this meaning, and then reacting, oftentimes very judgmentally, defining things this way and that way and narrowing our vision, in other words. With the Hanged Man, the only thing that's influencing is spirit. You can see that around his head. Because in the end, that's all that matters. This is simply an experiment. This is an agreed upon experience. We do it as souls before we ever incarnate. We choose our families. We choose our overall themes of our experience, which I know if you've gone through a difficult time in your life like I have, with abuse and what have you, that seems, a bit of a stretch, doesn't it? But when there's no emotion, when there's no judgment associated with anything, all of our experiences that we have, good, bad, indifferent, all of the colors of the rainbow there, become simply something to experience and to draw wisdom from. I can tell you, knowing that has been what has helped me get through my own abuse experiences, my own experiences as a survivor. Understanding that there was a part of me that was strong enough to know about this, no matter what I might feel inside here in the body about it. But the Hanged Man allows us to let go of all preconceived notions about what we thought things were and see them with the complete dispassion of spirit. So with that as a backdrop, we have the Five of Swords. And here we have sketchy, icky clouds in the sky. Swords is our intellect. Again, swords represents the air element and our mind and our judgment and our lack of dispassion, if you will. We have a guy here who's picking up the swords. He won the argument, basically, but at what cost? Change is happening, but at what cost? Now, again, I'm judging this man, aren't I, as someone that's perhaps getting away with something or being maybe a little too gleeful about winning, okay? Because the other two are quite bereft. They're not even watching. You've got the one guy closest to him who's looking over at the other one who's holding his head in grief. You've got the water behind. You can see a little bit of choppiness. So there was conflict. There was emotion expended here by everyone. One is happy, the other two, well, we know the one closest to the water is not happy. We aren't really certain of the other one, but I have the feeling that he's a little bit dazed and confused after the whole experience. He's no longer holding his sword, so he's no longer defending. So the argument, the battle is over. But something has happened here. Something has changed. They're no longer paying attention to this other guy. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? See, we don't know. Let's take another card. We'll do 4 today. I suspect we're going to move some cards around too. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. Let's move the 5 first. Right now, we're at an 8 energy because we've got a 3 with the Hangman. 3 and 5 is 8. So 8 is leadership, strength, an even greater awareness of the spiritual nature of life. So the spiritual warrior within. So maybe we've had a difficult moment where there's been conflict, but now let's move the hangman next. We've come to the center and we've come to a new understanding and a new awareness. And now we can set a new intention. So maybe this next card will say what that is. If this is a precursor to tomorrow's hearing, this could also be that same energy flow that I was tapping into when I did the 3-deck reading, if you will, because of course one isn't enough. I create the hell that is my life, so it was fun. I've not done that before. I've done series where I've looked at like all the queens and different decks and things like that, but I don't think I've ever done one where I've used 3 different decks in a reading. So that was interesting. Let's take one more card. I just wanted to see if all 3 decks would give me largely the same feeling. You never know. It could have been all, well, this deck says this deck suggests that, but it didn't turn out to be that way. So I feel pretty good about it. So here we have new beginnings. A 10, the 10 of swords, new thinking, new awareness. I know, it looks bad, doesn't it? It really does. Because we've got 10 swords piercing our back and we're on the ground, right? We're on the ground, dead as a doornail. But are we? We're looking out there. Our head is turned to the new horizon that's coming up there. We have a new day dawning. We've gone as far as we can go in our thinking, and we're going to reject all of it. So that's the new intention. The new intention from the Page of Wands is new beginnings and setting a new mindset. Whatever we learn tomorrow, whatever you don't already know, in case you did happen to read the Mueller report, I did. I skimmed the first part because a lot of it was stuff that we already knew. The juiciest part was in volume 2, of course, and that one I haven't finished quite to the very end of it, and I've not read the footnotes as closely as I should. In college, the footnotes were always where the professor took the most irritating test questions, right? So automatically, if you see a report like this, you've got to go for the footnotes because a lot of it gets explained there. And so you find out all sorts of things. So I've not done that as well as I should. I've not read it as closely as I should, just sort of skimmed through because it was very long, and I didn't quite finish at the very end of volume 2. But so if you haven't read it, if you aren't, familiar with what is in it, what we can see that's in it, there's quite a bit. So if you are, then a lot of probably what will happen tomorrow won't surprise you. But if you haven't read it, then tomorrow may be quite informative for you. And it does portend, I think, a new day. I think that's just what happens when truth is revealed. Let go of your preconceived notions, with the hangman, and allow for truth to just resonate. Use your intuition. If something seems right, and if what you've been hearing before suddenly doesn't, then pay attention to that. Higher self is saying, look, here's the truth. This happened. You can believe it. And move forward together in shared purpose, or you can continue the nightmare and chaos that's ensuing. It's really up to us at this point what we do going forward. So again, I think that what this reading is telling us is that we have some change, that some maybe misperception that has been going on. We've taken a time out, which is tomorrow with the Hanged Man. And we're watching Robert Mueller be the hanged man as he just stoically answers questions and tries to deal with whatever the nutty people are going to do. So I don't know. And then we come forward with a new intention, maybe, and a new intention of maybe some shared purpose, and to let go of everything that no longer serves us now that we've, been filled with the new truth. So in any event. We can hope that that's what happens. So let's do a rune here real quick, and then we're doing pretty good on time here. We're only at about 20 minutes. So let's go ahead and take a rune and see if it aligns with everything here, or maybe suggest something else. But typically they align with things. I'm comfortable with the order here. I think that we have the right order on this. Oh, wow, Tiwaz, the spiritual warrior within. The 17th rune of the Elder Futhark. So again, an 8 energy. We had an 8 energy with 5 and 3 with the 5 of swords and the hanged man. So that takes strength to align, doesn't it? It really does take the spiritual warrior within to do that, because otherwise what you have is, well, and then with the 10, that's an additional 1, so that's 9, and that's completion. So we've come full circle on this. We've reached an end. We've reached a conclusion. But we do that with the strength of Tiwaz. Tiwaz represents the god Tyr. Or again, the spiritual warrior within. You can see the arrow pointing upward to spirit. And I think what it's saying is that, particularly with our new beginnings, it's going to take the spiritual warrior within to manifest all of this, is what I think that it's saying. But let me find my geomancy runes here. I'm going to do one last geomancy rune here to add to this. And again, we'll put these 4 runes in the order of fire, air, water, and earth to see what it's, well, I can't see anything, so let me turn my magnifying glass on here and I'll find fire. Is this fire? No, that's water. This must be fire. So we've got a 2 for fire. Air is 1, a single dot. Water is 2. And earth is 1. So what does that give us here? Offhand, it's not a missio. Oh, acquisitio. Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, so this is good. Okay, this is gain. Acquisitio. Let's see if we can find that here in the, oh, here, oh, right on top. How about that? Fortunate. This is what it looks like, drawn out. 2 dots indicate a passive influence. A single dot indicates an active influence. And so here you have both active and passive influences in balance. You don't have the active influence charging ahead or the passive influence keeping everything from moving forward. So everything is moving forward in balance here. And so whatever we're getting tomorrow or today, if this is in preparation for tomorrow, or if this is just in preparation for today, what we're having to do, I think, to prepare for tomorrow's revelations is to align those spiritual energies within and to access that spiritual warrior, the Tiwaz within, and be able to let go of what we thought and just listen, without anything, without yelling back at the TV that you don't know what you're talking about, or that's not true. How do you know? Because if you're only going according to what the guy in the White House is saying, what if he's lying? I mean, he lies all the time. So what if he's lying? What if he is describing this in a way that is to get him off the hook? If you weren't an investigator, if you didn't see the data, if you didn't see the evidence, how do you know? At some point, you have to take the leap of faith to trust the man who's talking to tell us the truth. He has not committed any crimes. So right there, he's being asked to investigate someone who possibly did, or a group of someones who possibly did. He's only here to tell us what he found. Believe him. He has no reason. He's the same political party. He has no reason to lie. He just has a reason to reluctantly come now and tell us what we should have ought to been able to, read and get for ourselves. But instead, you've got the noise that distracts and causes people to doubt because you want to trust the guy you voted for. Here's the thing. It's kind of looking like you can't. No one can. So tomorrow, again, align in your own intuitive knowing and listen with that type of hearing. Let what he is saying resonate. If you start feeling uncomfortable, if you have never believed any of this and you hear him and you start feeling uncomfortable, that's higher self saying, listen. Just listen. If you're trying to struggle against what you're hearing, higher self is saying, listen. Just stop. Stop struggling and listen. Just hear what the man has to say. Hear the answers. Listen for the distractions that have nothing to do with what they're doing. We're here only to have that Mr. Mueller testify about his investigation. Ignore the red meat thrown at the wall and just listen to him. Listen to what he says. Listen to what's revealed. Drop resistance and allow. Become the hanged man. Become Tiwaz. Gain some insight, right? Whatever this ends up being. We're all going into this hoping that it's either true and that what we've been seeing, that we're not losing our minds about, that what we see is actually what it is, or we've been wrong all this time and that they did nothing. For those of us that have read the report, we know that's not true. So for those of us that have read the report, we know what's going to happen tomorrow. It just will. He tried to say so. If we could have found him not guilty, we would have done so. That means they couldn't find him not guilty. Okay? So we already know the outcome. We just need the facts. We need the filler. And that's what we're going to get tomorrow. So hopefully. Because the way things have been going, it's been a little insane, hasn't it? All anyone wants to know is the truth, irrespective of what that is. You know, if it's much ado about nothing, then we just need to accept that. But if it's not, we need to accept that too. So that's all I'm saying here. And I think that's all the cards have been saying as well. But the other thing the cards have been saying is that we're getting a little tired of all this hate and division driving everything that happens between us. That it's time to reconnect. It's time to let this anomaly go and come back together in shared purpose. Families have been torn apart. Friendships have been torn apart. Neighbor relations have been affected. And for what? For this guy? Please. And what's with all the sex traffickers he hangs out with? What's that about? Anyhow, we'll end with that. Again, going to be a little different tomorrow morning. We'll see how awake I am and aware. Anyhow, be good to yourself. Be good to one another. We'll see you tomorrow, and blessed be.